Alright. That's always fun. That's always fun when the internet decides to crap out. Lose all my viewers because the internet craps out. The internet craps, the internet craps, the internet craps, internet craps. Alright, you know what? Now's a great time. Now's a great time. I know, right? I had a good thing going there. Such is life. Such is life. Got asked a question by my niece who's 5 years old. She said, "What's life gonna be like when I'm old?" I looked up at the smoky crimson sky, and I thought, why not tell one more little lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point of feeding this machine if it won't make the world in our dreams where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? Never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet, when death's sweet kiss comes to sweep me off my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like to leave things better than before, so everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? When everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice. Everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? Oh yeah, we're back, Ruth. I'm glad that you guys came back. It's always annoying, like it's the heat. Well, and the fact that our services are so shitty here in Canada. We have the worst services while paying the most in across all countries. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Oh, John, you have the voice of an angel. That's very sweet of you. Always remember, Crouching, that Lucifer was an angel. Is there a ukulele B-side? I gave my ukulele to a friend, so there's no current ukulele B-side. Not a bad idea though. It would be a nice ukulele song, wouldn't it? It'd be a nice. Hey Aga, how you doing? Oh yeah, stupid internet, eh? We gotta nationalize this shit, man. We gotta nationalize this shit. Although I do think in this particular, oh John, did you by any chance get a text from the NDP on Saturday? Nope. Was I supposed to? Anyway, to touch back on this Matthew Green, right? There's a reason why the liberals and the conservatives don't use this stupid piano music thing, right? There's a reason. Because they know that they can't, like, you're putting people to sleep. You're putting people to sleep. And I think I get it. Like, I think I get why they're doing it, right? And I know that I was sort of being flippant about it, but I do think that, like, they're straight up being like, hey, I'm a black dude. If I come out with, like, heavy rock music or something, I'm going to scare these guys. And, like, there's something to that, right? Like, white Canadians are very skittish. Join the NDP ad team. By the way, Green represent Andrew Horvath's district federally, Hamilton Center. Okay, cool. All right, man. Ugh. Yeah. Defense stocks during the Afghanistan war. Lockheed Martin, 1,236 return. Northrop Grumman, 1,196 return. Boeing, 975 return. General Dynamics, 625 return. Raytheon, 331 return. The military-industrial complex got exactly what it wanted out of that war. Yep. Absolutely. And you know, Vince, like, the reason why I'm not, like, gung-ho to try and get on, like, an NDP ad team or anything like this is because these guys don't listen to me. Like, people who are actually, like, in political parties and stuff like this, they don't listen to this kind of shit. Like, they don't, like, I would say this kind of stuff to them, and then they would just put on fucking quiet piano music, right? Like, they're not gonna... They're not suddenly gonna change their tune. You know, even if I'm right, which I am. Stop putting people to sleep with your dumb shit. Delta variant weakens protection from Pfizer, AstraZeneca, COVID vaccines. Right? So, not only is the Delta variant able to punch through, it weakens the protections. A British public study has found that protection from either of the two most commonly used vaccines against now prevalent Delta variant of the coronavirus weakens within 3 months. It also found that those who get infected after receiving 2 shots of either may be of greater risk to others than under previous variants of the coronavirus. Yeah, you know, I just don't understand why these guys aren't trying to make themselves look cool. I think that's really what it comes down to for me, and why it's so fucking annoying. Like, look cool, dude. Like, look cool. Put on some, like, R&B or Motown, or, like, some, like, look slick. Look cool. I don't get it. I don't get why they keep... is it just because they only have a pianist? Is that the story? Like, why? This guy should be, like, looking... This guy especially. Like, I'm looking at Matthew Green. I'm like... And the way he talks and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, dude, like, you should look cool. Like, why do you not want to look cool? Look cool. Like, come out to some, like, cool, like... And, like, walk down the street and have, like, a strut and, like, the whole thing. And then talk straight to people. Yeah. I think you're onto it, Ruth. Like, fucking look cool. I don't know why they don't want to look cool. I really don't see this thing ending anytime soon. This will probably go on for years to come. Yeah, the pandemic. Yeah. No, it'll just become normalized. That'll just be it, right? It'll just become, like, kind of normalized. Like, this is exactly what happened with the Spanish influenza. That, like, they didn't suddenly cure the Spanish influenza, right? They just literally stopped tracking it. They just straight up were just like, whatever, man. Everybody just go about your business. It's fine. And, like, the people who died of it, and everybody just moved on, right? That's literally what happened with the Spanish influenza. They tracked it, they did all the precautions, they said all the stuff, and then eventually they just were like, nah, get back to work, right? Life went on. And that's, because that's how, oh, here's an interesting piece of news. There's an upcoming Russian election, right? As much as the Americans try to convince us that it's a fucking dictatorship and all that, it isn't, right? They've always had an electoral system. And the this is Putin's party, right here, and here is I forget the name of them offhand, but it's like a collection of old sort of Soviets and Stalinists and with a new crop of sort of Gen Z people coming together. As you can see, they got 18% of the polls to Putin's 25%. That the polling that is coming out of Russia is showing, right, 19%, 25%, that Putin's power is actually slightly under threat. And it is completely possible that probably not the next election, but maybe the election after that Putin might be ousted. Which would be, insofar as Russian politics works, like, Russian politics doesn't really move the way ours does. The Russian people are much more willing to, like, hang out with a leader for a long period of time than we are. We're very fickle. We get rid of people pretty quickly. Yeah, they're finding new variants in NYC rats. Yeah, the Lambda variant is starting to sound pretty scary. We can't vaccinate all the animals. Yeah, I can't stand the idea of having to push people out of my life to be safe. Yeah, because, like, and what's going on in the United States is just madness, right? That, like, literally, like, can you imagine if this anti-vax conversation was happening while polio was around, right? Like, can you imagine that these, and I mean, and we know it did. We know that there were anti-vaxxer types that existed in that time because we've got people like Dr. Seuss making editorial cartoons making fun of them. Like, we know that this is real, but, like, I just don't think it was on this scale, right? Like, that throughout especially the southern states. And it's so strange to me because, like, the big die-off is going to happen amongst the Republicans. That the big die-off is going to hit primarily Republican voters. And if it happens to any scale or any depth, it's going to mean that Republicans will never seize power again, right? As long as they maintain like this. What are you guys talking about? Navalny. What is this? Is this a new variant? Is this a variant? I don't know what this is, what we're talking about. Navalny? Navalny? As they drown in debt, as they're on call to their bosses 24/7, as they have no retirement, as their children face uncertain futures, they'll believe they're free if only they don't have to wear a mask. Yeah. No wonder Putin's power is slowly fading with his imperial ambitions into the Ukraine. Can I be really straight up with you? I actually think that, like, I don't think the Russian people care that much about any of that. Like, the USSR and, like, the Soviet Union has always had a certain degree of imperial ambition. It's never really affected Poles that much. Oh, yes. See how much I know? See how much I know? The thing that I think is really affecting Putin's polls is that people are looking at what has happened in China right? People are looking at what has happened in China, and they're thinking to themselves, hey, why isn't this happening in Russia, right? Hey, what's up? Like, China is obviously doing, like, enormous things for its own citizens. It's obviously building. It's obviously doing this kind of stuff. What's up? Why is this not manifesting itself in Russia, right? And a lot of it comes down to the fact that Russia is, under Putin and previous leaders, it reconfigured itself to look a little bit more like the United States, where the economic power is within private interests and controlling stakes. Whereas in China, that's not how it works, right? Like, that's not how it works. That the Communist Party in China is the party that has its say, right? Anyway, I have a link that is like, if you ever feel useless, remember, USA took 4 presidents, trillions of dollars, millions of lives, and 20 years to replace Taliban with Taliban. Yeah, Russia has a lot of sanctions. You're right about that, too. You're right about that. The Russians have experienced sanctions. I generally think that there is a trend in Russia, a desire to return to more communist policies. I have polling data that comes out of Russia, out of a lot of regions of Russia. There it is, right? That the number of respondents who believe that life in the USSR was better than after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The black line are the people who actually lived through the collapse. The white line is the younger generation that didn't actually experience it. And if you look over here is Russia. 44%, or 64 rather, percent of respondents say that they would prefer to go back to communism. That life was better in the USSR before. I mean, you're looking at a situation where the Russian people are starting to come to the same conclusion that people in the United States are coming to, that allowing private interests to own major swaths of your economy is bad, and that the profit motive doesn't manifest an advancement of your society, right? That if you want to advance your society, well, then you need to actually have a state system that is responsive to the demands of the populace. That's how you actually run a successful society, and one that's going to grow, and one that's actually going to build, and one that's actually going to do something for their own citizens, right? Like, I can't overstate this enough. What happened in China was a miracle. It was a literal goddamn miracle that they went from being like a dust bowl shithole kicking dog of Asia, where literally you could just walk in and do what you wanted, to now being the second largest economy, probably going to be the first one pretty quickly, in the world. All the while building major cities, major infrastructure, major projects, the Three Gorges Dam, the fusion reactor they've got built. They're sending people up into space. Their Mars missions have been incredibly successful. Like, they are a modern society, and they did it over, like, in less than one generation. It's a fucking miracle. And the rest of the world is starting to ask itself, yo, hey, can I do this? How do I do this? How do we do this? I want that. Right? And that includes Russia. And touching back on Afghanistan, if the Taliban have a fucking brain in their head, they're just gonna hunker down. They're not gonna start any major offenses or wars or purges or any of this shit. They're just gonna get connected to the Belt and Road Initiative, and they're gonna get fucking rich. Yeah, I really wish we had more socialists. It sucks, John. We have to suck the coconut mans, yeah. I guess Russia's on the right path. It's only 30 years old in the first year. The West robbed a lot. Yeah, it did. Well, and Russia is more linked to China than the United States. I mean, the United States has put sanctions on Russia. right? Russia and China have a military alliance. They actually have a shared currency, the renminbi, that is going to be threatening the American petrodollar, right? Like, Russia and China have fairly close relationships with one another. And 50% of all STEM engineers is Chinese. Cool. And China is going to be even more socialist by 2050. Well, especially if, Xi Jinping just announced that, like literally yesterday, he announced that he has the intention to take control of the wealth. He doesn't like this wealth inequality thing that's going on in the society, but he wants to equal things out a little bit more. Is the leader of our country saying that? Are the leadership in our country saying, like, hey, let's do this completely reasonable thing that everybody wants? Right? We got 92% of people in Canada saying that they want taxes on the wealthy, and it's not going to fucking happen. Like, well, and I mean, but that's like the core of socialism, right? It's like for egalitarianism and equality. And it's important to have equality. It's important that everybody lives in a society and has a similar life's experience. I think that's like, if you want to ensure that everybody in a society is going to get along and and that the society is really going to flourish and everybody's going to move forward together in unity, the way that the United States says that it wants to do, well, one of the major ways to do that is to ensure that everybody has the same life experience, right? Ensure that everybody is like, oh yeah, like, we went to this institution and then this happened and then this happened and then this happened, and that's kind of how it all worked out for everybody, right? So that you avoid this whole like, well, just get a better job, or just like, oh, what do you mean? Like, homeless people are just lazy, right? Like, and you completely avoid this problem of like, I'm rich because my dad gave me land, right? I'm rich because I inherited my daddy's business, right? Like, you completely, that's just not part of it. And like, we just need a she-covery, John. You're right. My bad. You're bad. My bad. Yeah, we just got to focus on that she-covery. If we don't focus on that she-covery. Igor, good to see you, bud. How are you thinking that we were just talking a little bit of polling? This is just polls, though. How do you think things are going in Russia politically? You're in Russia.
These people have never had to think about...
Like, we got some new polling data comes up. We got the CPRF actually gaining traction here against Putin's party. You don't think that Putin is genuinely threatened? You think that this is just kind of bluster? That it's not going to manifest itself into anything serious? Whereabouts in Russia are you, bud? Russia's a big place. Russia's a big place. Yeah. You know how your parents used to call every console a Nintendo? That's how conservatives use the word socialist to describe everything to the left of hunting the homeless for sport. Yeah. That's basically it. Oh, yeah. This is what I was fishing around for. From CNBC, hard lessons for U.S. investors. Chinese companies don't make the rules in China. Like, that's, I think, really is the major shift. It's the major difference, is that in America, the rules are written by the companies. Like, the regulations are written by the companies, who then give it to their politicians, who then pass the legislation written by the companies they're supposed to regulate. That's the way the system in America works. That's not how it works in China. That in China, the ruling class is the one that makes the rules, and the ruling class is actually not beholden to these businesses, right? That there's no money in their system, right? That the businesses can't just bribe officials. The businesses can't just like funnel infinite money into campaigns forever, right? And because positions like the presidency are actually lifetime appointments. There's none of this like, well, I'm going to bounce out and go work for Raytheon or go sit on a board of directors or something, right? And then, like, by the time, somebody like Xi Jinping or Deng or any of these guys, Mao, by the time they're leaving power, it's because they're retiring and they're just old and they're like, okay, I'm going to retire. And they don't work. They just leave. and so the infusion, the connection that exists in America between the business class and the political class, the merger, the fascist merger between these two forces, just doesn't exist in China. That the way their system works is they have what's called the National People's Council, right? I believe it's the National People's Council. It's NPC, and that is made up of every region in China elects. So, like, Nanning elects a representative, Kunming elects a representative, Gunyang, and down the line, right? It's very similar to the American system of electing congresspeople, right? That Georgia elects somebody, and South Carolina and North Carolina, they all elect people. But instead of how West parliamentary systems work, where you elect a Congress and then a Senate and your president, they just elect the National People's Council, and then the National People's Council is the one that's responsible for erecting institutions and erecting groups that then elect a president and all of this kind of stuff. But it's all based on the foundation of the National People's Council, who is voted in by regular Chinese people, that they have elections. So this idea that Xi Jinping is a dictator, it's childish. I guess it's really childish to call Xi Jinping a dictator, which is why you'll notice that as China has risen in prominence, people have stopped calling Xi Jinping a dictator. They call the worst thing they'll hurl at China is authoritarian, which, near as I can tell, means having rules and following them. 95% of Chinese people are behind the government was a poll from a university in the U.S. Makes you strong. Yes, exactly. That's a Harvard Institute poll. I know the poll you're talking about. And not only did it show that the people are behind the government, it showed an increase in support over time. That people were generally sort of soft in certain regards or things like this, and that the Chinese government actually worked to sort of rectify that. Dan, you're asking, how do we reconcile places like Foxconn? Not like we don't have similar or worse migrant labor, but curious for your thoughts. So it is important to remember that, like, what China did to itself, it knew it was doing. And the people knew what was up. And they understood that there's a movement throughout China called Made in China. There's a Made in China movement. And this label, Made in China, right, is actually a mark of real pride amongst the Chinese. And the Chinese people understand that what they did was a sacrifice. They understood that. But they understood that sacrifice paid off. And they knew what they were doing, right? That they went into institutions like Foxconn. They went into institutions like Apple. They went into these manufacturing places. They went into these places, eyes open, well aware that what they were doing was akin to a war effort. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about do a war effort, right? Because with a war effort comes this understanding that we have to sacrifice something, that there are sacrifices that are going to have to be made, and the Chinese people knew that, because the Chinese people are the adults in the room. Right? That you want to talk about real poverty, you want to talk about real suffering, you want to talk about real hardship, right? The people of China are well aware of what that looks like. And the real poverty and the real suffering and the real tragedies that existed in China don't exist on the floor of Foxconn, right? They exist in the starvation, in the famines, in the fields. They exist through the grinding poverty. They exist in the shitty dust holes in the rural environments. And the war-torn countryside, right? They exist in the disease and they exist in the illiteracy, right? They don't fucking exist on the floor of Foxconn. that, yeah, maybe we should, like, maybe the Chinese people want to do more in regards to, like, labor rights, and maybe they want to do all of that kind of stuff, for sure. That's their business, and that's the trajectory that they're working from, for sure. Like, here in America and in the West, we're dealing with a loss of the gains that we've made, right? And that's where our angst comes from, and our anger comes from, that we had made gains, that a single wage earner could have a house and a spouse and some kids and a car and go on vacation and live comfortably and know that his job was safe and useful and that he was making something for the society, right? And so he could be part of a community and he could feel good about himself and the time that he was spending doing that, right? We had built that. That existed. It was a success and we dismantled it. Right? That's where our angst comes from. China never had that. It never had that. That didn't exist. It wasn't part of the deal. Right? That a lot of these guys are just happy that they're not eating dust anymore. Right? Like, for real. Like we here in America cannot even comprehend the level of poverty that we're even talking about, that existed within the lives of the people who are still living in China. That there are people who are alive in China who fucking understand what poverty looks like, who understand what it is to live in a society that has no wealth, that has been plundered by imperial forces, right? They know what it is to be like that. And so their own government, the Communist Party of China, said, okay, here's the strategy. We're going to become the manufacturing base for the world. We're going to take the people of our own country and we're going to put them into these factories, right? We're going to give them an increased quality of life, and we're just going to grind them into it. And that's the sacrifice that we have to make to ensure that the next generation is better. The Chinese know that this is what they've done. They're aware of the sacrifices that they have to make, and they treat it very much like World War II veterans are treated when they came back from war. That they went through hardship and they went through sacrifice and they did it to create a better world. And they know it. And so, yeah, like, should China go through like a labor movement? Should the labor movement come up? And what would that even look like in a country that says it's socialist with Chinese characteristics, right? Like, what is it like to have a labor movement in a society that says it's Chinese with socialist with Chinese characteristics? Like, are they going to go labor? Excuse me. Are they going to go labor unions? Right? Are they going to go labor unions? Well, not really. It's actually far more likely that they'll start taking a swing at this idea of worker-owned industry, right? That as they start to move forward and as things start to manifest, they'll probably start to reconfigure their industry to be more worker-controlled, to be more directly controlled by the workers themselves, and they'll just skip over the whole labor union section, right? Because why bother with the labor union? The whole point of having a labor union is to negotiate against capitalists. But the capitalists don't own China. Right? The party owns China. The owners of China are the Communist Party of China. That's who owns China. And if the Communist Party of China wants to eliminate all of the billionaires in their society, they will. Right? They will. And Xi Jinping is standing up and starting to talk that way. And so they'll probably just jump right over the labor union. There'll probably never be a labor union in China. Because they seem completely dedicated to Marxist-Leninist socialist principles. And Marxist-Leninists seize the means of production. The workers should own the means of production. Right? It's pretty embedded. And that is a bold vision for a Chinese future, and China is now positioned so that that conversation might actually start to manifest itself in serious ways. Right? Russia is not a good place to live for me. I'm sorry to hear that, Igor, bud. That's tough. It's tough to be living in a place that's not really supporting what's going on, right? It's tough to be kind of in a tough situation like that. I've moved around so much because of that, because I've always felt like the place that I'm at has never really wanted to uplift me. It's never wanted me to actually succeed, right? That it's always just been this kind of like cloying, sniveling, like you have labor that we can exploit. We could exploit your labor, right? It's always been that kind of relationship. And it took me a long time to realize, like, I used to think it was just like a community here and a community there. No, it's Canada, and that's America. That relation, you'll never escape that in the West. This cloying, like, oh yes, you could do all the work while I buy a yacht. Yes, I need to shoot myself into space. Please work for me, right? Like, these are the people that you're negotiating with. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. Which is why I keep trying to highlight China, and I keep trying to highlight, like, hey, couldn't we, not suck so bad as a people? I think we could. We could really not suck so bad. That happens. I have the same in my country, occupied by the EU-SSR. Oy. Dan, you're saying that is a helpful narrative, can be seen in poverty reduction numbers. Yeah, almost all poverty reduction was in China by orders of magnitude. And of course the capitalists tried to take credit for it. Like, that was the most cringy, embarrassing shit ever. Oh yeah, it's capitalism that was responsible for that poverty reduction, not the actual country, right? Not the actual country that reduced the poverty, not the government in power. It was capitalism. That's right, guys. That's right. How fucking cringy and embarrassing. If capitalism had been the ruling prevailing force in China over that period of time, those capitalists in China would have gotten fat and rich, and the poverty would have persisted, right? That's because that's capitalism. That's how capitalism operates. They want you to have just barely enough to subsist, so that you can continue working for them. That's how capitalism operates. If I could get more wealth. If a country get more wealth, it gets more divided, right? Is it nature? It does seem to me like there are plenty of examples of natural species and creatures that are egalitarian and that share, right? Even crocodiles share, right? If a crocodile kills an antelope, all of the other crocodiles around form a line, and one by one they take a piece of the antelope, right? And they don't fight, and there's no like big scramble, right? They get into a line, and everybody gets a piece, right? Bees are like the definition of an egalitarian society, right? Everyone can have access to any honey they want, right? Everybody's working towards the same goal, right? This and just because the bees get more honey doesn't mean that there's like a section of their society that is divided away. It really does seem to be a very human phenomenon, right? And like in ape tribes, if an ape starts to hoard bananas or resources, the other apes kill him, right? And they just distribute. A lesson for all of us. Did the she-covery start yet? Oh man, yeah. Yeah, bud. The she-covery is underway. You bet it is. You bet it is. I gotta tell you guys, I am actually really excited for Afghanistan right now. Like, what an exciting moment for Afghanistan. They're going back to their roots. They're going back to their cultural roots, their religious roots. And sure, there's reform that needs to be done. I'm never going to defend the Taliban along these like gender politics lines, right? I'm never going to defend the any religious organization or institution that wants to kind of be regressive like that. But you can understand why they would want to begin there after a 20-year war, right? Yeah, of course, everybody's coping. Everybody's coping, dude. It's not just the GOP. It's not just the GOP. The Democrats are coping super hard. The Americans are coping super hard. Like, everybody's coping super hard. But because it's America, right, they'll forget. They'll forget in a couple of weeks, right? It'll be in the news cycle for a little bit, and then people will just forget, and they'll just move on with their lives. And then some event will happen in Afghanistan that's like a CIA spot, a psyop, and it'll kick up the hive again, and everybody will be like, oh yeah, the Taliban, we should invade Afghanistan again, right? That kind of dumb bullshit. No, like, all I know, it is difficult to manage a country to make everyone happy. For sure that's the truth, Rudd. For sure that's the truth, bud. Like, in my view, the real opportunity for Afghanistan is to get Kabul connected into the Belt and Road Initiative. If Kabul can get connected into the Belt and Road Initiative, like, you guys have seen this plenty of times, but I love showing it. It's my favorite bookmark. It's my favorite bookmark, right? Like, there's the passageway, right? Kabul is probably right in here, right? Look at that. It's right there. Just connect, right? Super easy connection point. Click right in. And like, from here, imagine what it would look like. So they've got it right here at the Kashgar prefecture. So it just comes down, goes through the Wakhan corridor, connects into Kabul. Now imagine, okay, so now we're going to build that rail from Kabul to Tehran. Now suddenly Afghanistan and Iran are connected to one another with a piece of major high-speed rail. Yeah, 102 years behind them occupied, they are finally free. Exactly. And people are saying now that, oh, well, Russia had a kick at it, right? Russia had its chance. Then the Americans had a go, right, in Afghanistan. And everybody's saying now China's going to invade. Now China's turn is going to go in there. And everybody's saying that. It's not what fucking China's going to do, right? China's not going to operate that way. It's going to connect in the Belt and Road Initiative right here. And the leadership of Afghanistan are aware of this. That's why the enemies of the Taliban have seized this road, right? The former vice president seized this road with with some troops, right? Because he knows the Belt and Road Initiative wants to go right through here into Kabul, and then Kabul to Tehran, right? Doink. That can be, and that shit. Oh, maybe even into Mashhad, actually. Kabul into Mashhad, right? And then Mashhad to Tehran. That'd be great too. That'd be good news for Mashhad. And I guess Afghanistan people get a better economy with Sharia. They choose for it. Well, and like, I am of the opinion that it is completely natural for a society after it has experienced war, the way that they have experienced war. It is completely natural for a society to go back to its roots, to go back to like the real basics and start at the foundation that they actually believe in. And the foundation that they actually believe in is the Quran. And I think that it is completely natural for societies to operate in this way. And from there, they can seek reform. And from there, they can find ways to understand one another, and they can find ways to communicate with one another. But this idea that, oh, you've just gone through like 102 years of war and you're going to come out a progressive, like, free-thinking state. No, man. No. The first thing that they are going to be interested in is security and stability. That's the first thing that they're going to look at, right? They're going to look at security and stability. And you know me, guys. You see back here, I got the chakra, right? I got the chakra system here, right? Societies operate in exactly the same way. The root chakra is focused on safety and security, stability, right? Then it's pleasure, right? So the Afghanistan people are literally going to stabilize themselves and then try to just find a way to enjoy themselves, right? Then it's power, right? So any kind of reformation or any kind of movement that happens is going to actually happen after they have a big fucking party, right? Expect them to have big celebrations. Expect them to have festivals. Expect them to have just cheering and consolidation. If I'm the Taliban, and we have footage of this actually, we've got lots of footage of the Taliban and Islamic people riding on amusement park rides and things like this, right? Because they're celebrating and they're in celebration because finally their oppressors are gone. And then any reformation that's going to come is going to come after this. And then, of course, there's love, which I hope the Taliban have a lot of. And then expression, intelligence, and then a connection to a divine force. Right? And if you put that in societal terms, that'll manifest how they communicate with the rest of the world. Right? That if they find love in how they're going to communicate with the people around them, they're going to do really well. They're going to do pretty well. And because they've got a large economy here that is interested in their stability, it's going to make things a lot easier for them. I actually think that what's happening in China right here and the timing of this connection with Afghanistan, like this could really create a lot of stability in the region. Which, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if you could actually look at the Middle East and be like, oh yeah, stable. Right? Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't it be something to think about the Middle East and think, oh yeah, good, stable. Ugh. And like, maybe they can actually start thinking about like expanding the National Reserve. Right, the Chinese have gone into their desert areas, and they've started to plant trees. They've started to plant all this green area that you see is starting to expand. Right, they're trying to expand this green area and trying to get the desert pushed back, pushed out, get rid of it. Right, get all of this desert region green. Enormous projects are underway in China to push this green area in. And can you imagine if they start an initiative starting here with the Nuristan Forest National Reserve, right? Start here, start pushing it out, start building more trees, right? Turn Kabul, get it into Kabul, get trees. Start planting it. Start turning this place into a garden. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Wouldn't it be absolutely wonderful if they just started to, use the wealth that's going to come because of the Belt and Road Initiative, the natural resources that they have lithium, like they've got lithium. And just start expanding the forest, start pushing the desert back. Right? Get this greener. That would be a beautiful sight. That'd be a truly beautiful sight. And it's so exciting because they actually have an opportunity to do something exciting. They have an opportunity to do something that could actually alter the course of their country, that they genuinely could in short order, right? The Chinese miracle happened over the course of a single generation. Within my lifetime, Afghanistan could become a rich and prosperous nation with cities built that would make you not even believe that they were ever at war, right? With cities built that would make you believe they were never even at war. What a beautiful thing. No, Sharia is government-based, Christian. They have no laws from the Bible, but the Quran is certainly an inspirational document. Have a good one, Igor. Thanks for popping in, bud. I hope you're doing well, bud. I hope you're doing well. And like, I have to believe that these things are possible, right? We have to believe that there is, like, a force of good that can exist through humanity. That humanity can do good things in the world. Like, we have to believe that. Sharia as government is not good. I like Ba'ath above government, above the Sharia. Yeah, Sharia, it's like any Orthodox religion. Well, and what matters more than anything, right? Because we can comment on it as much as you like, right? Like I'm not a huge fan of Sharia law personally, right? I'm not a fan of Sharia law, but my opinion doesn't really matter, right? What matters is the opinion of the Afghanistan people. Like that's the thing that matters, and that's what always matters whenever you're talking about another nation. What do they think? Right? What are they doing? What's their opinion? Like this is the thing about Iraq. When we went in and invaded Iraq, right? What did the Iraqi people think of that? Right? The Iraqi people didn't want it. They weren't interested in this liberation narrative that the Americans were putting down. They weren't calling out to be liberated from Saddam Hussein, right? That whole liberation narrative. The Iraqi people were not interested in that. What the Iraqi people were interested in was lifting the sanctions. That's what the Iraqi people wanted. That the United States sanctions that had been placed on them and Saddam Hussein, they wanted them lifted. That's it. And so when the United States invaded, there was a moment where the Iraqis were like, oh, maybe these sanctions will get lifted now. But then their country got blown up. Like, Iraq's not really a country anymore. Quran is different. Sharia, they worked on this for 300 years. About year 900, it was finished. Yeah, no, definitely. I understand what you mean, Rod. Like, there's no way that Iraq doesn't split, right? Like, take this road right here, split it right down this line, put Basra on one side, put Baghdad on the other, and just like, it's for sure going to happen because it also plays into the greater Israel narrative, right? That they want to expand the borders of Israel to include like a section of Egypt, a section of Saudi Arabia, a section of Iraq, most of Syria, Jordan. I hope you guys are doing well out there. I always feel like the last hour of this live stream is a little, Iraq is Ba'ath, and is no Islamic country. Really? Iraq. I know that. I know that there's quite a few different things going on in Iraq, and I know that Saddam Hussein was running a relatively secularist, secularist. I mean Muslim, but like, of course, what sects of Muslim? Oh, now we've got. Oh, here you go. This is what we're looking at. Yeah, they've got a separation between Shia and Sunni, right? And I wonder if we could see religion mapped, because I feel like they're fairly distinct. That like these maps got that Iraq got drawn up without any consultation of the Iraqi people themselves. It was done just by like the British. Is this what we're looking for? Can't read that. I can't read that. Anyway. U.S. propaganda is so effective that the only successful method of socialist revolution in history is the one that people dismiss as authoritarian. So the left eternally scrambles around trying to find some way to organize a revolution without centralized leadership. You can't. That's a tweet from Frog. If the frogs are saying it, guys, if the frogs are saying it. I know that Iraq was, like, Saddam Hussein essentially ran it as a secularist state, right? Reminder, the United States can afford anything it wants to prioritize. It just chooses to prioritize war and billionaire space races and not the environment, healthcare, and everyday people. And that's absolutely the truth. Yeah, Ba'ath is above the beliefs so Christian and all can live free. Yeah. Which, I mean, that's how you run an actual society, right? Like, you just, even the communists, like the original sort of communist idea was no religion, right? Like that it was there was no state, no money, no religion. That was like sort of a slogan from the communists. But the truth is that you can't really like do that. Like if somebody wants to follow, Christianity or Islam or something, and you're standing there being like, no religion, well, the only way to actually do it is to do some kind of like ethnic cleansing sort of thing. And the communists, I think, kind of came to and were just like, yeah, we don't want to do that. Like, we're not actually interested in that. So they really stepped down on the no religion point. And I don't hear any modern communists talking about that. Yeah. Iran is Islamic but support Ba'ath. Saudi hate Ba'ath. Oh yeah, it's there's so many different sects and dynamics going at play, and I'm not an expert on any of that, right? So, or, well, not any of it, but like on a lot of it. And I do know that like when Iraq breaks up, it'll likely break up like north-south, and it'll be like Sunni Shiite, right? It'll just be like sprung. And they'll just split off Iraq, and this section of Iraq will go towards the Greater Israel Project. They'll call it like, Iraqco or something, right? Well, I am out of prepared material, guys, so we're just going to spin the wheel of fate, see what Reddit's going to spit out. Oh yeah, from Jen Zedong, right? Daily supply of calories. Oh, I wonder what happened in Eastern Europe in 1990. Ooh, right down. Yeah, I can't imagine what happened. What happened in Eastern Europe in 1990, guys? If the Soviet Union is so good, why isn't there a Soviet Union too? Poll. The poll that I showed you. I'm very curious to know more about that. I'm going to do a little bit more research and see how serious and credible this threat is in Russia. We learn slowly what government is good. Pan-Arabic and Pan-Europe kill it, yeah. Oh yeah, and like, it's learning what is going to work for your society and what is working for your society. Takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of theory, and it takes a lot of reading, and it takes a lot of understanding. And like, the United States has just gone, oh, you study it for 30 years, look at you. We got a great expert in the room. Keeping me honest. That's what I like, Rod. Keep me honest. And the United States is going to go through an absurd period here. Because for the last like 40, 50 years, they've literally tried to convince themselves that government itself is bad, right? Like, there's one thing between like saying, okay, what form of government or what style of governance should we have, or what reform to the government should we do, or any of this. But the United States is literally walking around saying, no, government itself is bad. And that you have people in the Congress and the Senate arguing that the government should do nothing amidst these crises that are unfolding throughout the United States. That they're genuinely arguing that the best thing for the government to do is nothing, right? To just let nature decide, let the invisible hand decide, let chaos reign. It's going to take them like 100 years to finally get to a place where they may even start to conclude that government is actually worthwhile, that it's important to have regulations. It's going to take them a long time, man. It's going to take them a long, long time. And I don't think it's going to happen until after the sea levels rise. I think once the sea levels rise, that'll be the moment when lots and lots of Americans go like, you know what would be useful? Some kind of centralized government that actually knew what was going on and actually was making decisions with information and knowledge that we actually listened to and we actually trusted. Yeah, they'd be out of jobs and their reps wouldn't get any attention, yeah. Nah, the whole thing is a catastrophe in the United States, man. Yeah, Rudd, you don't believe it. Communists were low in the polls anyway. Always, rather. Yeah. And I mean, this is just one poll, right? So it could be not indicative of a trend, but good to keep your eye on it. Good to keep your eye on it. And to me, like, our poor brothers in the South, man, our poor Southern brothers, they're in a lot of trouble, man. They're in a lot of trouble. And they don't even quite get how much trouble they're actually in. That's the thing. Like, they don't really get how much trouble they're actually in. That the absolute... Like, Joe Biden... Like, people are speculating that Joe Biden is pulling out of Afghanistan because he wants to redeploy troops and do all that kind of stuff. He can't do that. He can't do that. They don't have the money anymore. Right? The United States is going broke. They don't have anything to offer. They don't manufacture anything. They don't really create anything. They don't. They have natural resources that they attempt to exploit, right, and send out into the world. But the trouble with that is that they're actually disconnected from the rest of the world, right? Like, this is the majority of the populace of the planet, right here. This is the majority of the populace of the planet. The United States is just like a weird little dude floating off on the side of it, right? That they've had this period of time where post-World War II, they didn't get the shit kicked out of them, and so they had all their infrastructure, and so everything was great, and they basically squandered it. Like, they've squandered everything. And, like, if I'm living... Especially if I'm living in a society that's connected by this enormous rail system right here, right? I'm not looking at the United States as like my savior. I'm not looking at the United States as even a stable ally. Like, there's a whole ocean between us, right? Like, these guys are weird. Like, these guys are like weird little... They might as well live on the moon. They might as well be an alien species. Right? And they just got, like, battle cruisers floating around the water and causing all kinds of problems for everybody, polluting the shit out of everything. Right? Like, if you're the rest of the world, it's become very difficult to not look at the United States as, like, an evil, dark empire. Like, they might as well have, like, skull parapets and shit all along the coastline, right? Might as well have, like, lightning crashes and, like, a Skeletor fucking, like, just all this crazy shit. Like, they build bombs, I guess. Exactly, right? They don't do fucking anything. And they're gonna go through a period... They're going to go through their own century of humiliation. Like, that's really what it is gonna be. It's going to be, like... It's going to be an entire century of them just being completely humiliated. And just, like... Life is going to be more difficult. Like, and not, like... more difficult like it is now. Like, it's gonna get bad. It's gonna get bad for the United States, dude. It's gonna get bad. Like, at least here in Canada, there's hope because we've got, like, this electoral system, and it looks like we're gonna go into an election and elect another minority liberal government where that means that we're still gonna have, like, a responsive political class to the needs of the populace to a degree. And so we're going to be able to get through some reforms and maybe move towards socialism, which is what we all need to be doing right now. The United States is not doing anything like that. Not even close. They're, like, literally doubling down on the failed policies of neoliberalism. And it doesn't look like there's any, like, in terms of their electoral system, it doesn't look like there's any reprieve in sight. Like, it doesn't look like there's any reprieve in sight. That if I'm in the United States right now, the number one thing that I would be focusing on if I was living in these states would be a separation movement, an independence movement. That's what I would be focused on. If I was living in California, I would for Texas, any of these states, any of them, I would for sure be focusing on a separation movement. Because the United States federal government doesn't give a fuck about anybody. It doesn't give a fuck about anybody. It just wants to bomb the shit out of people and steal resources so that they can build more bombs and continue bombing people, right? They have created a death cycle. That the only reason why they're going to war is so that they can continue funding the war machine, so they can continue going to war. All I can think is that although Dems are like libs, they will do more for the people than the crazies on the right. Well, the Republicans are not even a political party, dude. Like, they're a death cult. Like, the Republicans are 100% a death cult. Like, they've completely lost their mind. Which is why, like, oh, COVID's going through and killing a whole bunch of Republicans who won't get vaccinated. Hard to feel bad. Like, hard to feel bad. Like, that's my shittiest take. It's my shittiest take, but I absolutely stand by it. Like, you guys have the same information we all have, right? The experts are saying the same things to you that they're saying to us, right? There's no mysteries here. There's no surprises, and the rest of the world is putting on their masks and getting vaccinated. And who is it throughout the United States that's refusing to put on their masks and refusing to get vaccinated? Oh, the same people who are denying the existence of climate change. Okay. That's one way to solve the problem, right? I say we just let them. And someone tried to criticize me once and be like, oh, that's a very communist take. And it's like, I don't think that's a communist take. Like, we have a significant problem in front of us, and there's a very specific group of people who are holding us back. If they want to kill themselves, okay, off you go. Democrat is name nothing more. If I see they act with wars everywhere. Yeah, in terms of their imperialism, well, and honestly, the Democrats are not really acting much different when it comes to climate change, right? Just because they acknowledged that climate change is real doesn't mean they're actually doing something, right? That's my big complaint about the liberals. Like, the liberals admit that climate change is real, but they're not doing anything. Right, what are they doing? Like, what are they actually doing? Yeah, our transit system is a joke. We need some like China. Yeah, it's shocking, eh? Like, what happened in China was just incredible. Like, they've built high-speed rail all throughout their country. We don't have any. Right? Like, that's how far back we are from the Chinese. Like, the Chinese built this high-speed rail, this like mag rail. We've got none of that. We've got 0% of any of that rail. Like, capitalism is the most efficient system in the world. Yeah, it's the most efficient system. That's why we don't have any high-speed rail and everyone's poor. Yeah, okay, bud. I wouldn't be shocked if people started bombing Wall Street. I bet it will get that bad, yeah. I think you're probably right, dude. Well, I mean, for God's sakes, like, look at the school shooting phenomenon. Like, look at the school shooting phenomenon. Like, what is that? What is the school shooting phenomenon? Like, they're literally running drills with kids about what to do in case there's an active shooter, right? Like, that's a significant problem that exists already in the United States that they just don't talk about, right? They literally no longer talk about it. And yet, school shootings are like, how many school shootings in the U.S.? You can just have a list, right? Like, already, 2021, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, what month are we in? January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. So, about one a month, right? You've got an active shooter situation happening in America once a month. Like, that's a significant problem. That's a significant problem. And you got to start asking yourself, like, why is this happening? Why is it happening? Why is it that kids are feeling like they need to pick up weapons and shoot up schools? And my general opinion, I actually really highly advise that everybody go actually read the letter that the Columbine shooting kids, when the Columbine kids shot up their school, they wrote a letter about it, and I highly advise everybody go read that letter, because it basically explicitly lays it out. These kids straight out said, like, we don't have a future. There's nothing here for us. We know there's nothing here. We know that this school is just training us for nothing. Like, it's a nothing place. And so they get it in their heads that they're going to destroy it. And it's like, yeah. You take a look at what's going on in America today, like, can you really blame them? Like, what's going on for kids today in America? Like, really? Be real serious about it. Like, what's the trajectory for a 20-year-old today? What's the trajectory for a 15-year-old today? Do you figure in America, right? Best case scenario, they work some shitty job they can't stand, so that they get to rent some small stupid apartment or something until the day they're abandoned or they die. That's it. That's the American story now. Like, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of kids see the rubber on the road, dude. And like, and especially if you're like a poor kid, like if you're a poor kid living in a school system, like, you know you're being abandoned. Like, you're well aware of it. And you know you're being abandoned because everybody around you makes fun of you and denigrates you and shits on you. Right? You know you're going to graduate and nothing's going to happen. And your life is just going to be living in this shitty dust bowl, waiting for death. So some kids are starting to be like, well, I'm not going to wait. And while I'm at it, I'm going to take some of these asshole kids out with me who are total shitbags to me. Because we train kids to be assholes to poor people. Right? We train kids. Like, I remember when I was growing up, I was explicitly told, you better do well in school because you don't want to end up like the janitor. You know, the janitor that actually works in the school and that I know and I talk to. I was trained to disrespect that man. And what did that man do? He made sure everything was clean. He made sure the environment looked good. He was a good man and a good worker, right? And I was told constantly, you don't want to end up like that. Why? Why do I not want to end up like that? I wish that I had the wherewithal when I was little to actually ask them, why? Why do I not want to end up like that? Why? Do we treat those people badly? Are we supposed to treat those people badly? You don't want to be caught behind the cornpone curtain? Where do you think you would move to onward? And yeah, for sure it's going to get worse. Not sure how bad it will get before people stand up for themselves. Well, and there are situations where people are. Like, there's lots of stuff going on in, like, San Diego, Los Angeles. Like, there are movements that are happening. You just never hear about them because the capitalists don't want to advertise, right? They don't want to advertise that their system has failed, and so people are erecting alternative modes of how to be. And there are successes, right? There are mayors in more progressive places who look at the homeless crisis as something that needs to actually be taken seriously and dealt with on a humanitarian level, right? But their hands are bound to the wheel of capitalism just like anything else, right? The governor of California doesn't necessarily want to start requisitioning property from the capitalists because, capitalists are psychopaths and they'll react. Which, again, is why I think a separatist movement in California is important. Just get rid of these fucking capitalists, man. Just get rid of them. We West are too wealthy to stand up. Our lives are too good. Yeah. And that's just it. Like, people don't understand that, like, it's going to be a collapse, right? Like, you talk to these liberals and they have, like, a really stupid incrementalist sort of view. That, like, oh, we'll just do little tiny things and we'll negotiate with the sun. And we'll negotiate with the dead, and we'll negotiate with the earth, right? Like, none of that's going to happen, dude. And that, like, when the crops burn down, it's going to happen suddenly. That, like, the shifts that are going to occur are going to be sudden shifts. And they're not going to happen incrementally. Like the ocean isn't going to incrementally rise. There's going to be a huge ass storm and things are going to go up a foot, right? It's going to be a big like boom, boom. And this like liberal view of incrementalism doesn't pay attention to anything. It's just another form of denialism. This idea that we can incrementally change. Like, no, we need to do something serious, and we need to do something serious now. And we're not, of course. And so, like, I always bring up Florida. Like, at this stage in the game, there is no way that Florida is going to remain. Like, Florida is already gone. Like, get used to this idea. Florida is already gone. All of this light green territory, it's already gone. Right? Any of this light green territory, right? This shit's already gone. Like, it's already gone. Already gone. Already gone. Already gone. All this low-lying poor Italy. Get fucked, Italy. Like, get fucked. You're gonna at least lose your heel, right? Like, and if and when it happens, like, people like me, I'm just gonna fucking shrug about it. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, like, we've been saying it the whole fucking time. You stupid fucking liberals. Like, are you gonna listen to us now? Oh no, it's more police state. Oh, you've become suddenly fascists. Interesting. Funny how that works. Funny how all of a sudden liberals become fascists when things become hard, right? Turns out that the incrementalism was just a way for them to kind of cover their fascists and their fascism, right? Because that's ultimately what it is, right? That these liberals are just like they have all of the same proclivities and all of the same desires that fascists do. They just, know better, and they don't want to look bad, and they want to feel good about themselves, and they actually want to think like, we can improve, and sure, we'll have like a progressive reformist sort of viewpoint, but they don't want to actually let go of the fascism, because they know that there'll come a time when their position of privilege and prestige will be threatened, and they'll have to use it. That's where the phrase "scratch a liberal and a fascist bleed" comes from. It's watching a terrible accident happening. Yeah, you don't want to look away, but you look anyways. Yeah. Oh, hey, Kian. Kian, I actually don't think guns should be taken away from anybody. Here's my admission. I'm not a liberal. I am fine with the idea that people have weapons. Like, that's fine by me. I do actually take the position that a gun is a tool, right? And that the problem that's existing throughout the United States doesn't have anything to do with access to guns. Like, I mean, I think that there should be, like, the same amount of licensing to guns as there is for driving a car. I think that that's completely reasonable. That you should make sure that this person is competent, and maybe, like, don't create a situation where a person can, like, sweatily run into a room and be like, I need a gun right now, right? Like, maybe not. But, like, if a person can show that they're competent with a gun and they abide by gun safety regulation and all of that, a person should have access to a gun. I don't have a problem with that at all. So not only do I not think guns should be taken from hunters, I don't think guns should be limited to regular citizens. Now we can have a conversation about what style of gun we're talking about. Like, should a citizen have access to, like, high-grade military assault rifles? Probably not. Like, probably not. But, like, I don't buy into this liberal whinging narrative that says if all the guns were gone, everything would be better, right? I don't buy into that at all, and in fact, I think that actually makes for a weaker society, generally. That the issues that the United States has experienced doesn't have to do with guns, because per capita there are more guns in Canada than there are in the United States, right? That's also true across Europe. That there are many European nations that have the same amount of guns as the United States. So to me, it's not a gun issue. There's something else going on that, and I think it has more to do with poverty than it does anything else. And you also have, like, the state versus the citizenry problem, right? Like, oh, the state is armed, but the citizens aren't? Well, what do you think is going to happen? Like, no. I mean, and Marx was pro-gun. He thought that the populace should be armed. What I'm seeing in the United States is a bit weird, where they're like grown men walking around with assault rifles in like open carry situations. Like, to me, I look at that and I'm like, what are you, a fucking child? Like, that's childish to me more than anything. Like, it's dangerous, certainly, but it's childish. Like, and the liberal kind of pandering towards like gun legislation every single time, it's always stupid. Like, it's always stupid. Harasses the children that went through it, though. Yeah. This year, the school shooting is low because of COVID. Yes, that's a good point. That's a good point. And they're still managing to get it once a month. Spoiled kids who live in a lie. I guess this is the course, yeah. But John, Kelly Osbourne said Mexicans do that line of work. Really our society in a nutshell, dude. Yeah, that's some racist shit, eh? Fucking Kelly Osbourne said Mexicans should do that line of work? Fuck you. That's racist, man. Like, that's high-level racism, too. Like, that's not like subtlety, dopey racism. That's just straight, like, you think Mexicans are subhuman. Like, that's brutal. That's brutal. I'd move somewhere colder and less humid. Come up to Canada. You'll get cold up here, bud. I promise you that. Especially, you'll get like 2 months of time where you're like, oh yeah, this is kind of like Atlanta. Or like a month. August is like that. And then you'll freeze your balls off the rest of the time. Yeah, I hate how workers are put at the lowest denominator in our society, which is why when COVID happened, and they called all of those people heroes, like all of the people that had been shit on the whole time. Oh, you're lazy, just get a better job, all this kind of stuff. Suddenly we're called essential workers and we're called fucking heroes. Like, how fucking insulting can you get? Like, suddenly, oh, now you need us, and so we're essential workers and we're heroes. Get fucked. Yeah. Canada Communist. Hi, Castle. How you doing, bud? I'm sure you're still here. Oh. Okay. I'm happy to just get the fuck out of here, dude. COVID death toll climbing at 0. Yeah. Can I just... Yeah, there we go. Bye, bud. I don't need idiots in here. Straight up. Like, don't come in and take over the chat and be a fucking moron. So it's real straightforward stuff, dude. Be respectful. Yeah, I don't have time to deal with this. Like, I saw like some COVID denial, like any of that kind of stuff. No, I don't need garbage in here. Thanks. You're starting to talk about shootings. I thought you were going somewhere else with it. Oh yeah, I can understand that, Cam. Yeah. Well, and the gun issue is complicated. It is complicated. It's a complex issue. But I do fundamentally believe that, like, a gun is a tool like anything else. And if a society, if everyone in the society owned a gun, but it was, like, in their closet, you know. And, look, if the society itself was safe, i.e. the poverty was taken care of, everybody's food and shelter was taken care of, all this kind of stuff, then everybody would have a gun and be in the closet. Right? And they'd be like, oh yeah, okay. You know, whatever. Right? But it's because poverty is spreading and everybody's feeling desperate and things are getting crazy and things are getting shitty that people are keeping the guns close. And they're keeping them on them. Right? So, if you want to actually alleviate that, you got to alleviate the core issue. And the core issue is poverty. That poor people clutch their guns. And just, you've got to improve the society. Castle grow food and you wouldn't. Yeah. How many bedrooms, assault rifles? should be. Yeah, I do agree with, like, there are lines, right? Like, even the craziest gun nut, you're like, okay, well, should a person have access to a missile? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, so there's a line, right? Like, you've admitted there's a line. So, where's the line? And to me, it comes down to, like, mass destruction, right? Like, there's a difference between, like, a single-shot rifle or, like, a semi-automatic even, where you gotta go, like, pop, 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 right? And, like, literally, like, yeah, we're getting to the end of this one, bud. 3 a.m.? Oh, bud. Yeah, late night for you, Rudd. Thanks for coming in, bud. Good to see you. Do you think we could reverse climate change? I want to kind of change the way you're thinking about that, Kian. Because I don't think we need to reverse climate change, right? This Earth was a garden before we got here, right? Earth was a garden before we got here. That humanity came up and evolved and changed and grew in a garden. We were born in a garden. The Earth wants to be a garden. And it's becoming more desertified because of us. And so we don't have to reverse anything. We just need to stop polluting. We just need to stop clear cutting. Right? And once we stop polluting, the Earth will heal itself. And it will heal itself so fast that we will call it a miracle. We will be shocked. We will be in awe of how quickly the Earth heals itself. Like, over the COVID period, because less people were involved in the polluting process, the Earth did begin to heal itself. It was measurable, right? And that was just a small little dip. Imagine what would happen if we just genuinely stopped polluting with fossil fuels. Imagine if over 4 or 5 years, we just pulled the crank down and we just stopped polluting, dealt with the consequences of what that looked like. I think we would be astounded. Like, it would be legendary, I think. I think it would be legendary. You can tell Castle is a conservative. Well, it doesn't even matter. Like, it's just like don't come into a chat and just start vomiting like this, right? Like, the way Kian has operated is exactly how you operate, right? Kian asked a very clean question. Do you think guns should be taken away from hunters? Allowed me to respond to it, and that created a very pleasant back and forth here. But, like, coming in and just word vomiting, like, I've got a hard line on this, dude. Like, if somebody I don't know comes into my chat and just starts doing this, I'm just gonna throw him out. Maybe I'll put him on timeout. But I saw this guy do some COVID denialism, so I got no time for that. Yeah. You too, Crouching. Good luck. I know, it's too late. Yeah. Castle's house only had 1 bedroom. Well, he's not going to have anybody, like, sleep over or anything, so who cares, right? Yeah. Why bother talking to the incels? All right, guys. This is the end. I'm actually 5 minutes over. Thought I would linger for just a moment. Thanks so much for being here, guys. You're all beautiful. You're all wonderful. Oh, Kian. I asked that because climate change is very scary to me as a farmer, because the farm I'm at is trying to be more sustainable. It's just so expensive. Yeah. We're almost on the brink of bankruptcy. Where's your farm, too, dude? Where's your farm? Are you here in Canada? Oh. Yeah. Yeah, man. You do hope that people like that have a come to Jesus moment, right? Like, you do hope that people like that have a little moment where they come to their senses. Pennsylvania? What are you growing, dude? I'm kind of in the mood to stay up a little bit here, so I'm gonna keep I'm gonna keep chatting. I think the show is like officially over, and if you guys want to bounce out, you can go ahead. I'm gonna tool about it a little bit. Pennsylvania boy, Philadelphia. In terms of sea level rises, you are actually gonna look okay, dude, from the climate change perspective, right? Like Pennsylvania is not so bad, because the sea level, like New York is the one that's really gonna eat it, dude. Like and New Jersey, Delaware, like these guys are absolutely gonna eat it. But Pennsylvania itself is going to experience a refugee crisis because of this, right? You should expect also Lake Erie and like these places to kind of balloon up a little bit, for sure. So like maybe they'll be like. Maybe Erie will experience something, and like there'll be something along the 90 here where there'll be problems. Oh yeah. I assume you're a bit more centralized, right? You're a bit more centralized. So but what you're going to experience in Pennsylvania, and I suspect West Virginia, Kentucky, like this whole area is going to experience an influx of people because of the refugee crisis. Yeah, and the same story over here. Like it's going to be the same story all along the coast. And I'm sorry to say it, Onward, if you're still here, right? And I've told you this before. You're going to get a ton of people, a lot of Floridians coming up to Atlanta. Georgia's going to be the new Florida. Sorry to say. But, so in terms of water level rise, Pennsylvania is actually going to be okay. In terms of the heat, Pennsylvania might actually be one of the safer places. Because the big concern, right, is that the rising heat levels will burn crops down. That's the big concern. And we're already seeing that happening in Turkey, right? We're seeing that happening all across. When do I personally think this will happen? I don't like to put a timeline on it, right? Because putting a timeline on it is, that supersedes the will of the planet, right? That the planet has its own timeline. And I can only guess. All I know is that the experts are saying that all of this does unfold over the next 20 years. Right? You're looking at 20 to like 30, 50 years. So within our lifetimes, without a doubt. Like without a doubt. Yeah. I could believe it. If it happened within 10 years, Ruth, I would not be surprised. But I don't like to, I try to keep a balanced view. I try to keep the balanced view because I don't want to be that guy that's walking around ringing a bell, right? Being a doomer. Although, I mean, I have a YouTube channel and I ring a bell. And but to me, Bud, like the number one thing that I think as a Pennsylvania farmer, you guys need to be focusing on is sustainability, and you guys got to start thinking about connecting with your local government to move sustainability and move sustainable farming forward. And here's a streak of positivity for you, Kian. During periods of disruption, during periods of destabilization, especially when you have an empire collapsing, the way that the American empire is poised to collapse, people in rural communities, so people who are like living on farms, this sort of thing, tend to fare a lot better because you're more connected to the source, you're more connected to the local produce and the people who are actually producing stuff, right? Because you are an agriculturalist, politicians take what you say a bit more seriously, right? You can scare the shit out of a politician with by saying like, hey, famines are real, right? If heat continues to rise and our crops burn down, that's going to create a famine, right? And the famine point is something that I don't hear lots of people talking about, even though, in my view, it's the most serious aspect of this, and is real and can happen. And and so my thinking, like, Kian, if I was in your position, I would genuinely be starting to think about how to create a commune. Like, that's what I would be thinking if I was in your shoes. If I was a farmer, I had a piece of land, and I was actually eking through the way it was, I would genuinely start thinking about how to transfer what you're doing into a commune. Sad part is where I live is very, very far right and don't believe in climate change. Yeah, dude, isn't that something, eh? Isn't that something? Like, isn't that fucking something? It's just like, it's become beyond baffling, right? Like, it's beyond baffling now. It's gotta be like a religious impulse. It's gotta be like this delusion. It's like a mass delusion. It's like what happened in the Salem witch trials, right? Where they rounded up a whole bunch of women and hung them as witches and burned them as witches. And then after they burned all these witches and everybody kind of calmed down, people were saying, like, yeah, I think we lost our minds a little bit there, right? And it's like a hysteria. It's like a form of hysteria. It's like a deer in the headlights that they just can't accept. They can't accept it because it's too big. It's too grand. There's something like awe-inspiring or awe-striking about it that they can't grip and grapple with. And so they just prefer to deny it. And there's enough of them that it's just kind of taken over. Ugh. And like, at this point, like, what's it going to take to convince these guys? You know, like, what is it going to take? This is a question I keep asking myself, because it's like, you can't, and like the people who are actively spreading misinformation, like, those people are literal demons in our society. Like, it's one thing to be standing there and saying, like, I don't know about this phenomenon, like, it's that, like, that's just questioning. That's fine. But it's another to outright be lying, right? Which is what the far right is doing in the populace. Like, we know what the evidence is. Like, we know, I have a document called the Climate Change Denial Dossier. Like, the fossil fuel industry knew about climate change in the 70s, right? Yeah. Self-reliance is going to be important, and if you're on a farm, self-reliance is a great place to be. I have hope in the newer generations because they are more aware of climate change. But the problem is that this older generation is still around. And they're still voting. And they're still holding things back. Like, here in Canada, our Conservative Party doesn't acknowledge the reality of climate change. Just like in the United States, your Republican Party doesn't. Right? That's terrifying. Like, that's terrifying. These organizations are more terrifying than the Nazis. Because even the Nazis didn't try to kill the entire species, right? Even the Nazis weren't interested in destroying the entire environment, right? Like, there was the Exxon video leak where the guy said we were denying the science outright. Yes, that's right. That comes from Climate Town. Here, I'll pop that up quickly. YouTube, Climate Town. So here's a great video. I recommend you guys watch it. I'm not going to play it because it's... sorry.
Well, it's time.
And what happens is Greenpeace suckers this guy into talking about Exxon and the fossil fuel industry, and he's like the head of PR. He's like the senior guy for the head of PR, right? And he outright just confesses that ExxonMobil is running a propaganda campaign against climate change even now, right? This guy should go to jail. Exxon and their executives should go to prison. They should be considered traitors. The people, like, it's one thing to be like, oh, I don't know about that. It's another to know what the truth is, to have your own scientists tell you what the truth is, and to actively lie to the populace. Like, these guys should go to jail at the bare minimum. Well, it's gonna be an uphill climb, and that's the reason this channel exists. Okay, guys, it's getting late. I actually have to be somewhere tomorrow morning, so I'm gonna call it. You guys are wonderful. Okay, it was good to see you, Kiana. It was good to talk to you. Come back to the live stream. I'm doing this every weekday. Come back and we'll keep chatting. Okay, because I know it's scary, dude. God damn, do I know it's scary. And I know that people, especially like you, can feel isolated. And I want you to know about it. I'm here 6 to 9 p.m. and the reason I'm here is to help people like you. It makes zero sense how you can deny it when it's happening right before their eyes. In Pennsylvania, we have constant rain and thunderstorms for a week on end, and then drought, which is new for us. Yeah, dude. All right, bud. Good talking to you. Good night, Ruth. Good night, Crouching. Remember, guys, you are divine beings standing in divine energy. Don't let these suckers convince you otherwise. Good luck. We're gonna need it.